Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us. We're going to talk about, we were asked to talk about our endeavors within the local government of Ghent, of the local city council, what we are doing with data, linked open data and semantics, and the relationship to our website, which is built in Drupal. So my name is Bart Rosseau, and I brought my colleague Thimo, and we are both working for the data information unit within the city administration, and I also brought some backup in the form of my son Linus, but there was no after-school childcare, so he can learn today. Just a disclaimer for this presentation, I haven't written a single line of code yet. So my background is in political science, then within the administration I started working for communication, then the digital strategy, and that's how I ended up in data management. Thimo is a bit smarter than me in that regard, but he will prove or disprove that later on in the presentation. So this is the office we're working in. This is the old building of Belgacom. At that time it was still called the RTT. We're residing in that building, and the unit that we are working for is data and information, which is rather new because we started a year and a half ago, and we have the ambition to devise a data management strategy for the city of Ghent. The story which we're telling today is also very dependent on the development of our website, but that's the work mainly of Digipolis, which is our IT partner. So you may or may not know that a governmental website, especially for local governments, is something different than what you might expect from most of the commercial websites. When we talk about the purpose of the website, it's about information, but not just about one product or one line of products. It's about a whole range of things, going from culture and exhibitions to sports activities to grants and poverty policy. So it's about information. There's also a huge transactional part. People want to be able to log in, log on, and fill in the forms online and so on and so on. So, which makes the goal of that website a bit harder. And then, because we're a quite large city with a lot of subdivisions, we have over 40 different websites. Okay. In our main website, we have over 5,000 pages, which is quite a lot to manage. We have a lot of different user profiles. This goes from people who are looking to inscribe their children in an elementary school, also for organizations who are looking for grants or what they want to do, and even funeral parlors are one clear defined user group, because everything they do when you want to bring somebody to the cemetery, there's a lot of forms you have to fill in, and those funeral parlors are quite professional and they take care of that for you. So we have a lot of heavy users as well. What are the challenges to maintain the consistency among those pages, among those different platforms and websites? And where we used to do this by having a whole hierarchy of redacteurs, editors, who had rights to change what, we noticed that this works to a certain extent. But when you're talking about opening hours which are changing, you are dependent on who remembered where they put in all the opening hours on all the pages. And so the accuracy of rapidly changing data is getting more and more complex. Luckily, there are solutions for that. So another thing is that we noticed by migrating from our old website, which was not Drupal, to the Drupal environment, that there are a lot of, not databases, but serialized data in the CMS of your website. So we were facing the challenge again, okay, how can we transfer these data And is your CMS of your website the right place to put that kind of information, to manage that information in the CMS of a web platform? So we started thinking about having our website, which is Drupal, as a data distribution platform, and we're going to elaborate a little bit on that. So we start to get involved in the whole migration towards a new web environment because we started the open data 7 years ago already in Ghent. So we were definitely the first government in Belgium who were publishing open data in a structured way. So we had, and we still have, the open data portal. It's working, it's functional, it's there. It needs a lot of work, so right now we're in the process of redesigning everything, also in the background and in the front end. We have a lot of data sets. I think we have close to 300 different data sets in our data portal, which needs to be managed as well. But when you're honest, those data sets and the use thereof reaches a limited audience, in the sense that people who know what to do with those data, who can take the data and make it usable in an app or a web view or whatever. But the benefits are there for the larger audience, but it's dependent on the people who are using the data and their own solutions. So that was one thing we noticed. Makes sense. Another thing we noticed, that by bringing out this data portal, that the biggest group of reusers of the data were our colleagues within the city administration, not necessarily the app developers. Because now our colleagues knew there's one place where we can look and the data are there, we know they're recent enough to be usable. So that's also a quite interesting starting point. So by further developing that open data chain, more and more people internally were aware of what we were doing. More and more of our colleagues were aware that if I have data, it would be useful to publish them as open data, because more people would know that the data is there. The external use, the external use was rising as well. And we also noticed that it's part of a larger data system. And this might make sense and be quite logical, but the awareness of data and the importance of data that it's talked about on a management level is quite new. The first discussion we had about data on a management level within our city administration is 2 years ago. Because before that, data was regarded as a side or a byproduct of IT. But it's not, depending on who you're talking to, but it's not. It's a strategic asset. And by unraveling the complexity of the whole editing process of the website, people started noticing, yeah, but if the data is there, why should we type it again in our own separate page, and so on and so on. So that's why and how we started thinking, eat your own dog food. Can we use the published data sets as a source of data, of information that can be published on our website? And with the help of DigiPolice and the project leaders there, we managed to make that feasible and to actually make it work. Which means that the correctness of the data, the being up to date of the data becomes more and more important. So now we're in the process of pinpointing responsibilities, who's responsible for what part in the data publication chain. When we talk about data, we might assume that all the data is generated within your own company or organization. For the city, you might assume that, but it's not like that at all. A lot of data, it comes from different providers. For instance, in Ghent, the waste company is no longer part of the city administration. So they control the data about waste management. So if you want to publish a map where all the public dustbins are, you're dependent on them to provide the correct data. Other governments also provide data, but not necessarily in the format that's usable for you, and so on and so on. So that's one thing. Different sources. As I talked about, we had data which were locked in our former CMS. We have data in SQL, NoSQL. We even have some remnants in FileMaker. It works and it's still there, but it's not reusable. And a lot of different systems to view the data. For instance, within our unit of data and information, we have 3 platforms. One geo platform, GIS platform, one platform for statistical data, that you can make your own dashboards and so on and so on, and we have our open data platform. So when you want some consistency throughout all those data sets, you need to find a way to combine that and make it interchangeable, interoperable, and so on and so on. And then we need a federated approach. We cannot assume control over the whole process of all those data chains. It's impossible. We're not going to say to the Flemish administration how they should structure their data. But we need to talk about it and find some ways to make it talk to each other. So luckily, there are even smarter people than the police who devised something like the Semantic Web. It's not a new concept, but now we start to see the first use cases and how it's really usable. It's a new concept in government circles, but we know there's a lot of potential there to make the flow of information and data between government levels easier. When you talk about the addresses which are validated on a Flemish level, but we need to use on a local level, when you use the Semantic Web, it's really easy to make queries and so on. So Thimo is going to talk a little bit more about that. But the main thing is that for our website, we use our own data, we identify the data, and by researching and investigating what RDF uses are here abroad and also supported by the EU, we try to make it workable within our local context. But Thimo is going to explain that.
So thank you for being here and staying this late. I guess we have some stiff competition in the other sessions. Who of you knows the RDF? All right, ouch. Okay, that's good. That's going to save me time, save you time, and then that will get us all to get to the reception very fast. Very good. On a very high level, what are we talking about when we talk? Bart mentioned, is a CMS a good place to store all your data? Probably it isn't, right? But it is a place where all our data comes together. I mean, if you have a website, a public website for the city of Ghent, all the stuff we have in separate databases somehow should be presented on this website. So it's a very good focal point to gather all these different data sources that we manage. And we used this opportunity that we had to create a new website basically to make an overview of what data we have. So where does it come from? Bart mentioned most of the sources already. We have GIS, geographical systems. We have databases of all kinds about citizens, about government products. We use a lot of web service. Most of them internal, but we have a lot of web services, for example, from the Flemish government that we have to integrate. And all this stuff comes together in the public website. So why do we have a public website as a city? Obviously for citizens, so people can view the data, view the information we provide. But next to citizens, another customer, so to speak, of our data as a government is an application or a third-party program or whatever that wants to integrate official government data. That's why we do open data. We try to publish as much data as we have in a machine-readable format, so you can make any kind of application on top of it. But we're seeing that we have a third customer, so to speak, is in artificial intelligence. Just a dry set of data in XML or CSV, it doesn't mean anything. So if you want to be able to reason over this data, if you want to be able to make inferences or make something, have a machine, something smarter that wants to calculate all kinds of stuff, then you have to do a little bit more than just publishing open machine readable data. So who of you knows about the singularity? Only one. That's the moment when the machines will take over. So what we're doing is basically we're building a big database, a big global database that contains all the information about the human race that machines can reason over. So they have a good starting point basically to get ahead of us. That's not the real reason to do it, but what it is. So all of you know RDF. So I won't. You don't? Okay, RDF. All right, I'll give a very quick high-level overview. Let's see what slides I have. Yeah, okay, so this was what I was trying to explain. A machine really cannot understand what we are saying. Human speech is dubious. You have to have a lot of context to understand what we are actually saying to each other. If you are a machine, you need that context integrated in your data. RDF is a way of structuring your data in such a way that actually every term or every literal in your data is connected to some kind of concept or a class. In RDF lingo, everything depends, is let's say an instantiation of a class that's defined somewhere on the internet. 4 rules. Who knows this guy? Tim Berners-Lee? Okay. Supposedly the inventor of the internet. Is not true, by the way. Well, okay, it's kind of true, but there were 2 of them, and one of them was a Belgian guy, and he actually studied here in Ghent.
No way.
Yeah. Robert Caillou.
So the internet is half Ghent.
Yeah. and we're both very chauvinist. So these are 4 rules to kind of do the semantic web. First of all, we need to identify all our stuff. We have a good tool to identify stuff. It's called URIs. All URIs are unique, so they're actually perfectly suited to be unique IDs for everything. So let's do that. Let's give everything a URI. Secondly, let's use HTTP to look up those URIs and describe all the stuff that's on there. For instance, if we have a URI for the city of Ghent, then on that page we can describe what is the city of Ghent. Third step is to provide useful information in an open standard such as RDF. And the last step is basically linked to other stuff. So we can have Stad and Ghent is a city, and there's also other cities in Belgium, and then you can click on the word or the term city, and then you can get an overview, or you can do a query which will give you an overview of all the cities, for instance. Very concretely, where do you get it? If you want to get it from the city of Ghent, you can use content negotiation. If I am a human and I use a browser and I want to visit a news article on the website of the city of Ghent, then I would basically send a HTTP GET request to this URL, and that would provide me. That would first enter our firewall. The firewall would see that there's a header in the HTTP request that says give me HTML. It would go to Drupal. It would ask HTML to Drupal. Drupal would provide that HTML and would give it back to the browser, which in turn will give it back to the human behind it, and we will be able to see it and read it and understand it. If I'm a machine and I don't care about all the pretty markup, then I would probably prefer something like RDF. So I could go to the same URL and put in my header that I would like it in RDF. And then instead of going to Drupal, it would go to our triple store, it's called. It's basically a database for semantic information. And it would do a query on the database and it would send you back some RDF. All these RDF in this database is populated from Drupal right now. So what we do is we take all the content types that we have in Drupal and we translate them to RDF, and we add some semantics in there, and then you can basically query this data store, the triple store, directly through the browser. This is an example of an RDF result. This is a news article not in HTML and not pretty, no markup, no CSS. But it does says very clearly a lot of properties of this article. You can see that it has a date in which it was published, it has a body, it has a description, it has a headline, it has an ID and so forth. And in many cases, this is a very boring article. In many cases, it will also have videos, it will have responsible organizations, it will relate to a place or a district in the city of Ghent and so forth. I'm just going to take a quick peek to see how much time I've got left. Unless you're all really bored and want to go now. All right, so This is the RDF presentation of a news article on the City of Ghent's website. So which content types? It's in between, not brackets, but the other thing. It's not really a content type. We define them as types in our semantic database, but most of them are actually part of the same content type. So it's not really a Drupal content type. Let's say it's a kind of entity that we describe semantically. We are now describing news, products. Products in the government context means all the services you can get. So that's subsidies or help, or we have, the City of Ghent has about 480 products. A lot of places, events, points of interest, all this stuff. It's all on the website, and it's also all described semantically in our Drupal store, and you can get it as RDF. There's another way of doing it. It's called microdata. Who knows microdata? Right? So Drupal can also output some microdata in its pages. Here you can see that, for instance, this is an HTML page, but it has information about it. About a news article, its schema. For instance, it has a source organization. You can see that this article was written by the police, and it has some mentions. You can refer to some other kind of content through microdata. Actually, this is very detailed. This is the way Google finds out if your page is an event and if it has opening hours and whatever. So this is actually exactly the same information as what is stored in our Drupal store, which you can get through content negotiation, only it's embedded in the HTML content. So which modules do we use? Because this is DrupalCon, so we basically have to mention these. That's what we use to output this microdata. Oh yeah, this is the fun part, Sparkle. Who knows Sparkle? All right. All right, good. Sparkle is a query language for semantic data. It's actually very simple. It looks a lot like SQL, but it does pattern matching on triples. So every fact in the universe can be described as a triple, and Sparkle is a query language that will help you to find the right triples. A lot of pages have a Sparkle endpoint. This is basically something where you can just simply type in a query, a lot like SQL, and it will give you an output. The City of Ghent has a Sparkle endpoint, but also the website Link Geodata. This is basically the endpoint where you can query all of OpenStreetMap's data, very interesting stuff. And DBpedia is a semantic copy of Wikipedia, so you can get everything which is in Wikipedia, you can get as semantic data. What can you get from the City of Ghent? You can, for instance, do a very simple query like this. This query says, get me all the things such that a thing is a place. And that would return a list of places, a list of URIs which identify places in Ghent. As you can see, we have districts in there, we have addresses in there. These are all the places that are mentioned on the website, somehow relate to a news article or any kind of thing. Obviously, we need to limit this because otherwise our endpoint crashes. So this is the keyword you use to limit it. If you want to limit it by type, then you have to add another constraint that this one will get you all the things such that the things are places, and that they have a relation, which is called resource type, and the resource type must be the literal vehicle. So this will get you all the districts of the City of Ghent. This is the result of this query. As you can see, there are still URIs, and there's doubles in there as well. And it's a very difficult query. We can make this query a little bit simpler by using prefixes. So now the resource type we have here is just basically cut away from the query, and it looks a lot nicer. This is not that important. This is the result of this query again. And now we use distinct, very much like SQL, to make sure that we only have unique districts. Now, this is very good for a computer. The computer can follow these links and find out about all these districts. But for a human, it might be more interesting to get the name of the district. Oh yeah, and this is how many there are. If you're interested, there's 26 districts in Ghent. If we want to get them by name, we add another constraint. We basically select all the things where the things are a place, the things are of the type week, and they have a name. And then basically we output the name, and then you will get something like this. There you go. So this is a very easy example of how you can query semantic data from the City of Ghent. you can think of a lot more complex queries. Basically, you can go as far as to say that you want all the events during a specific time period posted by a specific organization in a specific district or whatever, this kind of stuff. I have two more examples. If you're interested in doing ecological stuff with your company, for instance, you can probably get some of the products of the city. This is a query where we will get ecological products. Very simple, we will get a product, we'll get its title, which has as an audience a business, and which has a subject that is nature and environment. And we can find a number of subsidies or other city products that you can use if you're an ecological company. Another one, this one will give you all the news articles that are published recently by the City Museum and another museum in the city, the Huis van Alleen. And you will get this kind of result from this. It's not very readable, but if you query it, you can get it in any format you want. There you go. I think this is more or less it. There's a finishing slide which I didn't put in here, so maybe Bart can say something about it.
What's the importance? Why is the government working on quite technical stuff like this? Because we believe that part of the governmental framework is distribute information as widely as possible. When we're talking about the whole digital transformation, smart cities and so on, it relies really heavily on how you make information transparent and reusable by others, so you can work together on new solutions and so on and so on. So what today for a lot of people is still quite high tech. I still have difficulties to explain this to my father. But in the end, it will make a lot of more information available that you can track what is going on with your tax money in your area and what it is going to be used for. Especially when you talk on a European level, where are the grants going to, for what kind of projects and so on. All this information, when published on the web, becomes searchable, and you can reason on it, and then you can make applications on it. And there are applications being made today. We're releasing more and more data on mobility. Mobility is quite an issue again. So more and more people make solutions for themselves, for their clients, for their niche, for their peers, whatever. But it's based on data which is being provided by the city and others. So the government is not the sole curator of those data. For instance, right now we're also using data of Google Waze, of Coyote and so on to track where the congestions are. What we hope to see as well is that more and more people are going to reuse the data we publish on our site in their sites, be it Drupal or another environment, by using those queries that Thimo was describing. So these queries can be used to automate content in your website. For instance, those queries give me the news items of the museums. This is very interesting for newspaper editors, because you can imagine they don't have to go to the press conferences anymore, which the mayors and vice mayors might not be too happy about. But that information comes targeted to them, and we don't have to define the target groups anymore. As people themselves who are empowered, if we can find a good wizard to write your own Sparkle queries, that you can say, okay, I'm interested in that kind of news on those topics, and I want to have it each month or each week or each day. So, and that's the way we are looking to develop more and more of that information and services. So these are some sources we would like you to visit if you're still interested. So Stad.Gent is our main website. If you want to look at the kind of data we have, this is the data portal. By the end of this year, it will be brand spanking new. This is also, we have a GitHub account of the City of Ghent. It's an organization. where we just started out, but there's some RDF schemes there that if you want to get more into details, so please visit it if you have any questions or comments or suggestions what we might publish on GitHub as well, please let us know.
Yeah. And send us pull requests, please.
Yeah. And then if you're interested in working for the city of Ghent, because we are still looking for a lot of good Drupal people and developers, this is a site where you can look what jobs are available right now, and then you get in touch with the employees.
Right. Maybe just one more quick question. You seem all to be very into this kind of stuff. Is there any kind of data that you want us to go after specifically? I mean, like a structured data set that you need from the city of Ghent?
The locations of charging poles for electric cars.
Okay.
Is the next hit.
Yeah.
Did we have it? Did we have it?
We have some in the open data portal, but it would be good if we could semantify it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go after it. We should have it somewhere.
I'm reliant on the data. You can trust it.
Thank you.
Never trust the government, right?
Well, two parts of the answer. We try to achieve as much reliability as we can for our own purposes, which might be different from the purposes from an external user. For instance, when TomTom is using our data, they expect real-time feeds. But for us, for our traffic management, a 5-minute update might be enough. So there's some discrepancies there. And we're trying to look for working solutions how we can manage this. Another part is that by looking at which data is being used and most popular in reuse, it might help us prioritize which data chains we need to really investigate and make the security and the trustworthiness higher.
Ik ben niet gewonnen.
Oh, jammer.
So you have service levels for the data then?
Not yet. When we talk about open data, and we hear these questions also in Barcelona, Helsinki and so on, because when these data feeds become part of your business model, you want to have service levels. On the other hand, then the big question is, one of the big premises of open data, and what we're talking about is open data is free. Free in reuse, not necessarily free in money. And
Papa,
then,
kijk.
wacht jongen, wacht
Mijn
gewoon even.
spoon hier pakken.
Yeah, super. But there we see that distinction is being made that we publish the data free in the rawest form and in data dumps, but if you want to have every minute by minute updates, then there might be some way to negotiate a contract, and that the companies who are interested in that might contribute to some budgets to make that possible. So you have this data market that's emerging as well. But it's still, I haven't heard yet in Belgium of any working examples on that, because the market here, we have to be honest, is too small for now. But we hear in Holland, for instance, in the Netherlands, there's about 200 local governments who are publishing parking data, but in different formats and so on and so on. So I think there are 5 or 6 big companies who pooled their resources, and they hired one person to clean the data and publish it on the way they want it. So open data creates jobs, not necessarily the way we anticipated.
Why you don't have any web services? Right? Well, there's also a kind of standard to share geographical data.
Yeah,
Actually, we do have a lot of web services, but they're not on the data portal. So this is why we're doing a complete rehaul of the data.stat.can website. Because now it's only made for basically uploading static data sets and CSV files and this kind of stuff, and that's pretty straightforward and boring. But we have a lot of systems like the GIS system, which provides WMS and WFS services where you can get a lot of maps. They're also centralized, and they're much more up to date than most of the CSV or XML files on the data portal. And we want to expose these directly, And then in terms of mobility, we just finished a very big project. Actually, it might be, if you're interested in mobility data, the 10th of October, we're doing a data dive, big event. Still has to be announced. It will be announced on the city website and apps for Ghent. And it gives an overview of all the data that we have about mobility. But this is a lot. We have real-time information on congestion. We have real-time traffic accidents or all kind of other situations on the roads leading towards the city. We have the number of bikes in real time. We have some weather data. We even have the delay of the buses in real time. Something that Delane will never give you, but we will. Well, we will open it up for the city of Ghent alone. So that can be interesting. So you can clearly see if it's Ghent-Feesten, for instance, that your bus will be 30 minutes late. They know everything. They just don't advertise it, or not accurately. But we do.
But regarding the web services, we also want to gauge. There's more and more possibilities about sharing and sharing and publishing data. And what we try to work on in the back office within our own administration, how can we align everything? But now we realize that for one type of data, we have really good working web services, but we need to micromanage in order to make them publishable in our open data portal and vice versa. So we're trying to see which technology stack do we need to publish the data consistently and is supportive of the data processes as they are running and being redesigned. So still a lot of work, which is good news for us.
You mentioned in the start that you built everything without writing code. Can I then assume that these little links where you can download the GeoJSON and the KML, etc., that they're manually added, or are they automatically linked?
No, the disclaimer was just about me. That me
okay.
personally haven't. I don't know code. I learn by osmosis, but
Yes.
no. But of course, the code is written by the developers in the Hypolis. But they also design a really good backend editing system that my colleagues who don't know Drupal or HTML can still write what they want. And now we're thinking about how can we add these micro data in that backend as well. So we're thinking about that.
I've got a second question. Did you hear about a project called DCAN?
Yeah.
It's also for less geographic, more other kinds of open data. It's quite suitable.
Yeah.
We're actually we're looking into that. It was a very good candidate to be the next data portal. It's basically a Drupal implementation of CCAN.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
it's full open source and it lacks a little bit of features, but that's easily buildable.
Do you do consultancy on DCAN?
Not specifically on DCAN, but I do consultancy on how to get stuff working.
Right. But the problem still is with one of the issues with DCAN is more of the issue that we have with the definition of something being a data set. So a data set is clearly definable if it's a file on a file system. But the question was, like, why don't you publish web services? I mean, they're much more interesting. Is a web service one data set, yes or no? And DCAN also, just like this portal we have now, wants you to add a data set and then provide a link to a data set. But you know, if you're talking about a web service, there's not just one link. There's the documentation that you have to add and so forth. So we're looking a little bit how to capture both static data sets and web services as entities, items that we can advertise alongside each other somehow. Well, maybe it's a feature for DCAN.
Ja, ik heb de spiegel wel op de noten. En daar...
Linus, mag die jongen ook iets vragen?
So I know that RDF is like a standard to query the data, but you also have Inspire.
Nou weet
To
je
query the
dat.
data in a standardized way. But you also have Inspire. It's also a standardized way of tagging the data. Is there any link between both? Can one be clear?
Well, it's a trick question.
Inspire is metadata.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually something different. It's something different. RDF is a standard, an XML schema basically that tells you how you can write things in a way such that they're semantically interoperable. Next to RDF, there's all different notations for semantic web data. You can write it in RDF, you can write it in Turtle, you can write it in JSON linked data. They're all different kind of formats in which you can encapsulate semantic data. Inspire is a very good standard for describing geographic data, but it's not semantic in the sense that it doesn't use this philosophy that you can easily add or change definitions to it. It's a very strict standard. It's a good standard. We use it internally. We're forced to use it. We have to report to Europe in Inspire. So that's a very good, and it's very possible for things like geographic data. It's very easy to define very strictly what is a street, what's a house, and so forth. But the semantic web allows you to have a more loose-like definition of something, and everybody can add on to it. And if I say that this thing is a district, but you disagree and you actually think it's only a very small district or a sub-district or whatever, you can add that onto the semantic web. It will grow like the web itself.
Thimo, at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned the module RDF UI.
Yes.
I made a presentation about this module for the Drupal 8 release party in Bergen, in Gouwen.
Awesome.
It is one of the modules that I have followed the most.
Yeah.
I wrote to Stefan Kolorske in order to ask him,
Yeah.
so it is maintained by a woman,
Yeah.
an area from Vietnam or something,
Yeah.
and Stefan is the one who could help about it, so I wrote him a personal message in order to ask him, please Stefan, can you put your hands on it?
Yeah.
And obviously he has no time and he's working at Acquia, and obviously they do not have the time. So my question, Thimo, RDF UI is for Drupal 8 and Stadghent is Drupal 7, but RDF UI is one of the most amazing modules, but I've finished with it because it bugs all the time.
Okay.
And my only question is, do you plan as a city
To invest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you are able to pay a TLD domain like Ghent,
We got it for free. I'm sorry, we got it for free.
a good friend of mine whose name is Hans Frepon.
Oh, right.
He's a good friend of mine for Hoefla. A long time ago, he spoke to me about Ghent, but I didn't pay attention. So my question is simple. If as a city you invest so much in a so beautiful manner, my question is, would you consider to put on Twickeners on such a project as RDF UI for Drupal 8, which I am humble, but honestly it is one of the most interesting modules of Drupal 8.
I'm very happy to hear you say that it is a very good module, because I didn't know it.
Okay.
It's DJ Police developed a website.
Okay.
They suggest the modules that we could use. I looked it up. It looks very good, but I didn't try it myself.
Okay.
To answer the second part of your question, if we can invest in it, I hope so. But there's two parts to this. Actually, I think next week is the first time we will publish open source software from the Digipolis. So this is it's a shift in mentality that we need to go through as a city, but also as a department of Digipolis. We did publish some open source software in the past, but not in a structured way. So now we're trying to create a precedent to really work open source, which also means contributing to existing modules. We really want to start doing this. But, like you said, Stadghent is Drupal 7. It's going to take some while before we will start onto Drupal 8.
But I think when we are more and more aware of these tools which are out there but still need some finishing touches or deeper scrutiny, I think we're also active in the European network, where more and more cities who are dealing with these kind of problems we can tackle together. So we are also talking to the EU, And I think if there's some viable products out there which need to be consolidated, we can talk to cities like Helsinki, Barcelona, and Eindhoven, and the EU instances to see, okay, can we make a project out of it? What kind of budget would it need to finish this? There are programs like Code for Europe and so on. So
there is probably little to do.
yeah, wow,
And
dedication.
talented persons are obviously concerned about other stuff, and I do not blame Stefan, he's a cool guy. Now, as you mentioned, other cities are also into this open data. Please pass the word, Thimo and Rosseau. Please pass the word RDF UI.
Okay.
RDF UI. That really is, the idea is amazing. It really is.
Okay.
Actually,
we have a project which will start in October about linked data. And we have some budget, and the Summer of Code, the Open Knowledge Summer of Code. Every year they hire a number of students or developers to work on that. And so we're sponsoring the Summer of Code in 2017. RDF UI might be a very good
Please pass the
candidate.
word.
Yeah.
Okay, we could start on GitHub a folder to talk about this. I'm talking about the TLD. The city of Ghent didn't pay for it.
No way.
No, it was by the company.
We paid with our soul.
No, it was by the company who wanted to promote that these new TLDs were available. So we struck a deal with them. So we didn't pay anything for it.
And we got some free domain names.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for the attention. The slides will be available later on. We talked to the organizers. I think that they will consolidate this, but we're also on the slide share. So thank you very much also for the feedback.